I'd like to welcome my guest, John Taylor. He needs no introduction. Legendary balance sheet, the Taylor rules, Stanford, worked within the government and various agencies. John, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, well, we had the New York Fed President John Williams on. Great interview with Steve Leisman. And my impression, to summarize, got a nice pop out of the markets. And I think he really talked more towards the notion of balance sheet, whether it's really on automatic pilot, referencing comments made in 2017 that it could end so they see it fit. And Mr. Powell, of course, the previous day, in my opinion, during Q&A, did the most damage to the market by seeming a little more stalwart on the notion that it's on automatic pilot. Speak to the balance sheet, its importance, and why it's so hard to calibrate how we're going to drain it away.
Well, I think they've been much more specific about what they're trying to do. That's good. Remember, the taper tantrum was kind of a mess a few years ago. It's much better than that. I think automatic pilot is not the right way to put it, because they're able to make the adjustments as they want to going forward, so there's flexibility. But I think most important, it's pretty clear what they're doing, and they made a big effort to be clear about it.
Now, when it comes to the balance sheet, I rub shoulders with a lot of people that have traded markets for 4 decades, and the notion that this is something never done before, especially on the scale we've seen globally. How do we know if we're proceeding correctly? Whether it's a stencil automatic pilot, whether it becomes more subjective, it is something we're just not sure of feedback loops, are we?
Well, you're right. We haven't done this before. Of course, it began with the massive balance sheet expansion, not just in the U.S., but in Europe and Japan. So we're in the process of regularizing, normalizing that. It's difficult. It always has been difficult. That's why some people warned about the big purchases in the first place. But I think what we've learned so much is if you can be predictable and explain to the market as best you can, it should work better. It's not easy, and I think people should recognize that, but it's going well. In fact, there's lots of people who go back and question how much of a boost to the market these actually did in the first place. There's a lot of debate about that amongst economists. So in the meantime, I think they're trying to be predictable about it, which is good. It's not automatic pilot, that's for sure, but it's much better than it was.
It's funny you mention that, John, because I've seen that you've done a lot of empirical research as of late about lots of the policies that were implemented during the credit crisis, Great Recession. And your conclusion was they really didn't make much positive difference, maybe even negative. So that does include quantitative easing. So that just gave me a question that popped into my head. None of us much thought about it specifically, but many believe that many of the Fed's liquefying processes did not do as intended. If that is our hypothesis, and you could finish this out, that would mean maybe there's too much nervousness about the unwind of QE.
I think there's some truth to that, because there's actually debate amongst economists. Some of the most recent work that's been out is saying that a lot of the QE in the first place didn't make much difference. The latest research is showing that. But I think you got to be careful about it. Too rapid, unpredictable unwinding. I think the Fed is being careful about that, and they're treating it very seriously, which is good.